Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to discuss astrology and the INTJ. Just a heads up, if you believe in astrology and would be offended by having it criticized, this is not the video for you. When the men of old were looking up at the sky at night, they were astounded by what they saw. All those stars twinkling brightly, most of them seemed to be fixed in relation to each other. They were so consistently in the same spot relative to the other stars that shapes were identified and cataloged as constellations. And today those same shapes are still easy to spot. They also noted that some of the stars were not playing the game and were moving around. In fact, our word planet comes from the Greek word for wanderer. There were 5 of them that could be seen with the naked eye, and they were considered very special. Combined with the sun and the moon, that made 7 bodies that moved around independently from the fixed stars, which influenced why we have 7 days in our week. And many of those days are named for these bodies. Man tried to understand what he was looking at. He started off thinking that the Earth was a giant pizza, a huge flat circle that rested on something. Either pillars or a turtle or whatever they could imagine could hold up something so massive as the Earth. Over the top of this pizza was a dome that held the stars and sky. It was all nonsense, of course, but it was the best they could do at the time. Since the dome seemed to move during the year, they felt there was a great significance in where the sun was located at any given time. Also, the magical moving wanderers must have some significance. As is usual with our species, when we don't know something, we make something up to fill in the gaps. When we have no clue, we have myths to make up for it. From a simple, demonstrable facts point of view, astrology is a mess. Aries is said to begin around March 21st. If you were born on, say, April 10, you are said to be an Aries. Why? Because this is the time that the sun spins in the house of the constellation of Aries. But is it? No, it is not. The sun actually enters the constellation of Aries on April 19. If you were born on April 10, the sun would be in the constellation of Pisces. But of course that doesn't matter to pseudoscience, does it? We say you are Aries, and by golly, that makes you Aries. No backtalk. It gets even weirder though, because from around November 30 to December 17, the sun isn't in any of the 12 constellations in the astrological list. Nope, it leaves Scorpio and enters the constellation of Ophiuchus on November 30 and stays there until December 17. Only on December 18 does it then enter the constellation of Sagittarius. If you were born between November 30 and December 17, your sign should have been Ophiuchus. You can easily forgive the ancients for being wrong. They were trying to work towards an understanding of the universe, just like we are doing today. They didn't have any idea about astronomical distances. On average, the Earth is around 150 million kilometers or 93 million miles from the sun. Even moving at the speed of light, it takes 8 minutes to get from here to there. The moon is 384,000 kilometers or 238,000 miles away, give or take a bit. This information would have confused the ones who invented astrology completely. If the distance of the Earth to the sun is taken as 1 astronomical unit, the visible planets to the ancients were Mercury at 0.4 AU, Venus at 0.7 AU, Mars at 1.5 AU, Jupiter at 5 AU, and Saturn at 9.5 astronomical units. The sun is 1 million miles across and is about 100 diameters from the Earth. These sizes and distances would have astounded the ancients. But the stars they assumed were fixed only appear so because they were so far away that the distances would have been utterly inconceivable. The constellations often associated stars together that were in no way physically connected. Only line of sight would have connected them up, like the top of a tree might line up with a distant mountaintop from where you were standing. Astrology began based upon ignorance and misconceptions. The planets moved in the sky because they were close by, and they were orbiting the same sun that we are. Where they are at any given time matters as much as where a bird was flying at the time you were born. The constellation where the sun was located when you were born matters no more than where a taxi was in your town. If there were any sort of correlation to be drawn, it would be connected with the season you were born in. For example, if you were born in spring, things might work out differently for you than if you were born in winter or summer. But even that can't be connected to astrology, because if you were born south of the equator, the seasons are reversed. It is all utter nonsense. And yet, there it is, every day in your local newspaper, where the official witch doctor has thrown out the chicken bones and read the tea leaves and printed up your horoscope for today. I went on a website today to check all 12 of the horoscope predictions for each of the astrological signs, and after I started reading them, I discovered that for every one of the 12 signs, he said that there are high chances that the individual would be changing jobs soon, probably this month. This statement was at the end, following the typical vague platitude sort of statement you always find in the words of the charlatan. I once saw a self-proclaimed psychic work an audience, and it was the same thing. He tossed out things to hook in someone in the audience, vague details about some departed loved one, and someone would sooner or later stand up and say, "Oh, that's my husband you're describing." Then he fed her some sharp guesses and nursed her along to feed him more details so he could then make more guesses. The guy was good. It was very clear, however, what he was doing, at least to someone who was paying attention to his methods rather than the emotions he was attempting to evoke from the people. And in the end, I noted he only had good news. Everyone on the other side of death were doing wonderfully, and they all sent their love. I was surprised he didn't add, "Wish you were here." And so it continues. Even today, there are so many things that we don't know that we need our myths to fill in what is missing. We look for answers where there are no answers. But there are people who are willing to make up answers, for a small fee, of course, or in some cases, a not so small fee. When I met my wife, she worked filing technical drawings and materials for an engineering firm in Portland, Oregon. One of the engineers called her Jessie James, because she was well endowed and was packing 45s. Today he would have been fired for sexual harassment, but at that time it was all taken in good fun and no one cared. He never made advances and considered it a compliment, I think. In any case, a little after that, he fell into the sphere of a religious nutjob who soaked this engineer for just about everything he owned. He was handing out money hand over fist. Why? For the same reason people give massive amounts of money to psychics and astrologers every year. A new Messiah comes along every other day who is willing to give you his lies if you will only give him your money. The Reverend Sun Myung Moon was a well-known case of this sort of behavior when he created the Unification Church, and he raked in millions of dollars. He lived like a king, and his followers were duped into supporting his lifestyle. He ended up in prison for tax evasion, but those sorts of guys have popped up over and over again. The fact that they pop up is not surprising, since many people are perfectly happy to take money from you that they haven't earned. But what does seem odd is that people are so willing to be duped. They want to be duped. They search out people who will happily dupe them. To fill in the rest of what was said on that astrology site today, the entire horoscope for a Virgo, which is the astrological sign that the charlatans assign to my birth date, went as follows. Children will ring in applause and praise. In the classroom and off it too. Processing logic and reasoning will improve too. I ask you to keep calm and enjoy the joyride, irrespective of anything that happens during the day. There are high chances of a job change for you around the second week of June. Know from the experts if you should change your job or not. I am just so excited by this I can hardly stand it. It is said that fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Sadly, this is all too often true. The thing is, there is no point in trying to save people from their own stupidity on such matters, because for many of them, it is their most powerful motivator. This is enough to make a statue weep. You don't have to ask them what their sign is. You know what it is. It is bridge out ahead. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'll see you next time.